You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue here given now this announcement?
First of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes. And if you see the end of his, I assume that you've read his statement, and you look at the end of that statement, and he actually says that in the first line in the last paragraph, and respects the thinking and how the American people will actually see this in his decision making. And I would encourage everyone to read in full the president's statement. I think he lays out his thought process. He lays out how he came to this decision. He came to this decision this weekend. So let's be very clear about that. He says it himself. It's in his voice. He said he came to this decision this weekend. And he said he wrestled with this. And because he believes in the justice system, but he also believes that the war politics infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice. This is his words. I'm just repeating what the president said. He also said that no reasonable person, if you are looking at this in a good faith way, if you're looking at the facts of Hunter's cases and you can't reach any other conclusion, right? And what we have seen, and not just us, there's other people who have commented on the president's actions in the last 24 hours. I've lost track of time, and could see that Hunter was singled out. And because his last name was Biden, because he was the president's son. That's what we saw. And so the president believed enough is enough, and the president took action. And he also believes that they tried to break his son in order to break him. That's what we saw. And this, again, I am just repeating what the president said. I think the statement in full really lays out his thought process. He said that he came to this decision this weekend, and he wrestled with it. It wasn't an easy decision to make.
She says, just real quick on that. If the two of them were together this weekend, did the president and Hunter discuss this possibility? Did they talk about this happening?
So I could say is he made this decision this weekend. He made it himself. I don't have anything else to discuss beyond that.
Let's talk about Hunter.
I just don't have anything to discuss. I've been pretty consistent in not talking about private conversations that he's had with his family. I just don't have anything to say. Besides, the president made this decision this weekend, as he said in his statement, and he made this decision himself. Once he made this decision, he shared it with his senior staff.
What the reasons he laid out in his statement, if we assume those to be correct, that's been correct. Those are not changes that occurred this weekend. So what changed his mind this weekend?
Again, it's in his statement. He wrestled with it. He thought about it, and he believed, and what he saw was that his son was singled out. And so he made this decision, and once he made the decision, which was this weekend, he decided to move forward with it and not to wait. I think he truly believed enough is enough. This is we have seen in the last 5 years or so, the president's political opponents say this. This is not the president saying it. They said it themselves. They were going after Hunter Biden. And so he made this decision.
So, Karine, when the president says that the justice system is infected with politics, how deep is the rot? And how much of the blame does the president take on himself for the fact that his own Justice Department, his appointees, have allowed it to get this bad?
And I'm going to get to your answers, but I do want to just share a couple of things from, for example, former Attorney General Eric Holder said, no U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts. After a 5-year investigation, the facts as discovered only made that clear. Had his name been Joe Smith, the resolution would have been fundamentally and more fairly a declination, hard and warranted. Former U.S. Attorney to the Eastern District of Michigan, Robert McQuaid, said, "Pardon of Hunter Biden is the best interest of justice. Based on the facts, most federal prosecutors would have declined to charge him. The botched misdemeanor guilty plea and sentence of the diversion were a tell that the special counsel had the same assessment." One more. Former Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division, Southern District of New York, said, "As SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief, I was responsible for approving charges and non-prosecution requests. I wouldn't have approved Hunter Biden's tax or gun cases if Hunter's last name wasn't Biden. I don't believe he would have been charged. His pardon is justified." And the president says it. I'm going to pull out his statement. To your question, and this plays into what I just read with the SDNY Deputy Chief, which is, look, there was a deal on the table, a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom with a number, this is the president's voice, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. This is the president saying it.
He's saying his own Justice Department is broken, Karine.
He believes in the Justice Department. He believes that.
I wasn't saying all that. He believes in the Justice Department.
Because this is words. He said this. This is the president saying
He said it's infected with politics.
I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making. I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively an unfair prosecutor.
So how deep is the rot? How many selective prosecutions are there at the DOJ?
What I can speak to is this particular case, which is Hunter Biden, who has the last name of the president, who I just said there were political opponents who were very clear and very vocal about going after his son. And I just laid out, and there's more, multiple people who are part of that system, right? Who have either worked in the justice system or currently do so. And they have been very clear on how they feel about this particular case, the cases against Hunter Biden.
The judge was also clear in this case. The judge said it wasn't political pressure when it came to the plea deal. He said this was a process issue, that you basically had two agreements in one, and that you can't have side deal. There were basic questioning in this case that both lawyers could not really answer the questions of. So the president, his statement, is he not undermining the judge and a judicial system that he promised would be independent, but just in this case did not say it was political pressure?
And I just talked about an SDNI Criminal Division Deputy Chief who said he was responsible for approving the charges and not prosecuting requests. I just also quoted him and what he said, right? And there are others who have said, former White House counsel said, if I were his White House counsel, I would encourage him to pardon his son. The clemency power has few limitations and certainly would extend to a Hunter Biden.
Is the president seeking the resignation of the Attorney General?
No. Yes. Do you think this would have happened if Harris hadn't lost the election?
Look, I'm not gonna get into the election. It is a no. I can answer that is a no. And what I can say,
It's a this would not have happened if Harris hadn't lost the election. The pardon would not have happened if Harris had lost the election.
I can speak to where we are today. And so I can't speak to hypotheticals here. Where we are today, the president made this decision over the weekend. He thought about it. He wrestled with it.
The United States has more people in prison than any country on earth. Some are facing a death penalty that the president himself said he would get rid of, has not gotten rid of. Can we expect that other people who are in prison, whose clemency petitions are sitting at the White House, are going to have their cases see the same care and attention that the president gave his own son?
So look, as you know, when it comes to the criminal justice system and really making sure we get to a place where it's equal and fair, this is a president that has taken this very seriously, and you know that via executive actions that he took very early on in his administration. And he understands what certain communities go through. He's been very clear about that. He's talked about that. As it relates to pardoning or any clemency, the president, as you know, at the end of the year makes announcements. He's thinking through that process very thoroughly. There's a process in place, obviously. And so I'm not going to get ahead of the president on this, but you could expect more announcement, more part is a clemency at the end of this term.
Okay. Why was it the case that both you and the president said, well, after the plea deal fell apart, that there wouldn't be a pardon, and now there is a pardon?
Again, he referred to his statement. He thought about this weekend. This is a decision that he made this weekend. He agonized over it.
Are there any new details that?
What I can tell you is what the president said himself. He made this decision this weekend. And I think, again, encourage you to read the statement and really just the first paragraph and what he's watched his son go through, an unfair process, being singled out. And let's not forget, even in the last two parts of his first paragraph here says, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. And so he wrestled with it this weekend, and he made a decision this weekend on how to move forward with this. And so I'll leave it there.
Was he not wrestling with it before this weekend?
What I can tell you is that the president himself said he wrestled with it, and he made this decision this weekend.
If he was still wrestling with this decision, I guess two things. Is there anything in that statement that is a new detail in the case that would be a factor in him changing his mind here? And then two, if he was still wrestling with this, which, I mean, clearly he was. He was, like, we talked to the president's allies. He was still wrestling with this decision. Then why would he declare it off the table? Why would he say, I'm not going to do this, if clearly there was an intention to do this? Unless you could point me to a new detail in the case for which he changed his mind.
This decision this weekend, that's what I could tell you. He wrestled with it, and he made this decision this weekend. It is a decision that he came to terms with and made it, and shared it with all of you, obviously, by offering his son a pardon.
What we're struggling with is that his statement basically is a contradiction. It says, I believe in this system, enough is enough. I don't see how you can have it both ways.
I don't think it's a contradiction. I don't. Two things could be true. You can believe in the Department of Justice system, and you could also believe that the process was infected politically. And that's what the president says. Remember, there was a deal on the table that the Department of Justice agreed on, and it fell apart. And his political opponents praised that deal falling apart. And so, in that regard, yes, he believes in the Department of Justice, and he believes in the system. But there was a political singling out of his son.
Telling us that you've been telling us that he has complete faith in the justice system, except for in the cases where his son was concerned, and in those cases, politics corrupted the system. But you can't tell us any other instance in which the president believes that politics corrupted the justice system. Is this literally the only time that this has happened, or the limit of this problem, to get to Trevor's question?
Yeah. If his name had been Joe Smith, the resolution would have been fundamentally and more fairly a declination. Hard and warranted. That's Eric Holder. It is because from what I've just read to you, and from what other experts, people who are smarter than I, have said, because he's Hunter Biden, his last name is Biden. So there were actions that were taken that were far and beyond. And so they said, hard and warranted. Right? And I read I think I read almost all of them that I had for you to share about how people felt about this. Again, as a prosecutor, I doubt that these charges would ever have been brought against a guy named Hunter Smith. It was because he is the son of the president. That's State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Arenberg. That's what he said.
For people, the system doesn't get corrupted by politics for people whose name is not Biden.
You're twisting and misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm talking about a particular issue right now. I'm talking about the president's action on his son, hardening his son, Hunter Biden. And that's what I'm going to stick to, and that's what I'm talking about.
David is almost asking American families to understand why President Biden did what he did with the pardon. But for families who have a child who don't have the same resources as President Biden. Is that fair to ask them to understand if they're not sitting in this position?
But for the past 5 minutes, I've been talking about why there was a political infection on this particular case is because it was Hunter Biden. That's why we are where we are and why the president provided a pardon. And he believes that his son was singled out. And because Hunter Biden was singled out because his dad is the president. That's what we're talking about here. And that's what we have been seeing for the past several years. And that's what the president was speaking to. And that's why the president took the action that he did.
How soon could the next round of, pardons could come? For those who are waiting and have been waiting for some time and are Hunter Biden, how soon could we expect to see those?
I don't have a timeline for you. As you know, this usually happens towards the end. And so the president is going through that process, thinking through that process. I'm not going to get ahead of him, but you can expect more announcements to come.
All right, because it's the president's White House counsel and clemency officers' advice on how to handle this particular case.
I don't have anything beyond the president making this decision. When the president...
What advice did he get from the White House?
I'm not going to get into private conversation that the president has. The president made the decision to pardon his son. The White House informed, they have to be pardons, as you know, have to be filed with the DOJ. The White House informed the DOJ. They filed in with the DOJ, and that's how the process went. I'm not getting into private conversation. This is a decision that the president made himself. Again, he wrestled with it. He made his decision this weekend, and we've laid out pretty clearly of what he was thinking. His statement lays out pretty clearly. He believes in the Department of Justice, but he also believes that his son was singled out politically. And so he made this decision. Guys, all right, thanks.